Now, a few weeks ago, I ordered something that I have wanted to get for quite some time. And it's not something you would expect to see on the channel typically, but it's an area of tech that I wanted to get into for a very long time. Today, we're going to be talking about the G-Force S41 electric mountain bike. So we're talking personal transportation tech today. But before we jump into any of the details on that, if you don't know who I am, my name is JDubb, and I'm here to help you guys make a better tech buying decision. Now, if that sounds cool to you, please consider subscribing to the channel. And if you do, hit that bell notification so you don't miss any of my latest reviews. Now, with that said, let's check this thing out. Now, ever since electric scooters and segways and electric bicycles hit the market, I have been just silently watching in the distance, waiting for the technology to mature and get to a point where one, I could afford it, and two, it would actually be super useful and exciting for me to check out. And so finally, I feel like we've reached the confluence of price versus overall usability and function and feature, and I got one. I ended up just getting one, and this is a series of my thoughts and experiences with the G-Force S41. Now, as we usually do, you can head over to the links in the description below and see all the specs, all the detailed specs. I'm gonna give you some of the highlights that I feel directly play into my experience and my thoughts on what this thing can do and if it's capable and if it will fit into somebody's lifestyle. So if you want full specs, hit the link down in the description below, head over to the website. You can just pour over all the specifications. If you're into this kind of stuff, you probably know more about it than I am. I'm not a professional bicyclist. I don't own any other electric vehicles of any kind. So this is coming from someone who is just enthusiastic about the space. So let's just break down some of my favorite features. So first things first, let's talk about one of the big ones, which is weight capacity, right? I'm big, I'm a big guy. I'm 6'3", 255 pounds. And luckily for me, the G-Force S41 can take up to 275 pounds of payload. So good to go for me. Now, you're probably a lot smaller than I am, or if you're even bigger than I am, there's still a little bit of room there for you to get on one of these and still be perfectly comfortable. Performance-wise, it still was able to perform to almost its maximum capacity, even with my big, huge self. So huge props to G-Force for making this thing able to handle that. Now, moving on from there, you get 30 to 45 miles. Now, they give you a range specifically because it depends on how you ride the bike, where you're riding the bike, if you're going up a lot of hills, if you're keeping it on the highest power level consistently. I found that my best experience was getting it up to about 37 miles total, just total usage. And that was me flipping back and forth between level 1, 2, and 3, depending on the terrain. So on flat ground, I was on either level 1 or 2, just kind of cruising. And if I was hitting a hill and I really wanted to reduce my strain, put it up to level 3 and just cruise right up that hill. That blending and switching back and forth to kind of catering the power needed for the circumstances was able to get me out to about 37 miles, which was great. Now, I imagine if you were able to keep this on the lowest setting at all times, that's when you would reach that 45 mile mark, that full-blown mark up there. And again, I weigh a lot, so this thing has to work really, really hard. But overall, across the board, definitely well within their the specs that they say it should last you, and it did a great job. Now, it's also got 7 gear shifting system and dual disc brakes, which made this thing just easy to use, just like a regular mountain bike would be. I was able to cater and switch quickly. They've got, up and down gear shifting, super easy. You've got a throttle on the right hand, so you can use that when you're taking off, or if you don't want to pedal at all, you just crank that sucker back and you're off to the races using specifically only the power coming from the motor, which worked really well. I found I only used the throttle when I was taking off from a dead stop. That kind of reduced that initial battery drain, right, when I'm taking off from a dead stop. So I used it to kind of get myself going. And then once I got up to speed, I started pedaling and the motor took it from there. So really high quality stuff as far as that goes. The other thing that I really enjoyed was the dual suspension. So you've got front handlebar suspension, which was very fluid, very comfortable. It absorbed a lot of shock. And then you've got the center kind of the frame set, kind of your seat suspension, I should say, right? That one, in my opinion, I would say is probably the only thing that I experienced that was not the most comfortable. It's a little on the stiff side. I would have liked to see that a little softened up to cushion more of those bumps when I'm sitting on the seat and I'm cruising along. But I mean, if you're riding a mountain bike and you're used to riding a mountain bike, you know, standing up, you know, kind of adjusting your body as you're ready to hit, especially larger bumps, easily took care of that. So it wasn't really that big of a deal. I just would have liked to seen that a little bit more customizable. What else was really cool is that included with this, you have your little control module on your left handlebar. Now this controls the power of the motor. You've got your horn, you've got your LED headlight, which was on the front. I thought that was a really great feature, having a built-in headlight that's all just kind of built into the whole system, which was really great. Easy click button. The horn is very loud, lets people know that you're coming up on them. It's actually, it's a little excess. It's a little bit too loud in my opinion, but it was very impressive. It was great, especially when you're cruising down a path that's got people that don't see you coming. You can honk that thing and it was great. The controller itself also tracks distance, battery life, and allows you to switch the motor between level 1, 2, 3, and off, giving you the full quick accessibility to change the amount of power that you need at any given time. Now, the other thing that's great about this bike is it is a folding bike. So it does have a mechanism in the middle where you can actually break this thing in half and kind of folds in on itself. This also gives you access to the battery. You can actually pull the battery out. So if you wanted to buy multiple batteries, that is a possibility, and have them charged up, and you can change them on the fly, which is really cool. But it also allows you to just kind of make this thing a little bit more compact. The one thing I will mention, I didn't use that feature pretty much at all. I didn't really play with it that way. I still used a standard bike, mount on the back of my car without folding it in half. And just one thing I should mention, this bike is not a light bike. This is not your aluminum frame, pick it up and throw it over your shoulder kind of thing. With the battery, the electric motor, all the hardware in there, this thing weighs quite a bit. It's a very chunky bike, not something that you're gonna just pick up and whip around. So just keep that in mind. This is really a vehicle for you to get on and off of and kind of cruise, from point A to point B, that kind of thing. Definitely don't expect to be manipulating this thing a lot because it weighs a bit. Now, with all that out of the way, let's talk about why I bought this one and my experience. Okay, so first things first, I've been looking at getting an electric bike for a while. Okay, I've been looking at all sorts of them. There's slowly becoming so many options, so many brands, and it's hard to kind of filter through the field, right, of everything that's out there. And what I was kind of looking for is something that was very attractive, that didn't look like an electric bike, right? Nothing that looked weird and out of place, right? Something that looked very sleek, something that was I wanted something that was cool looking. This is one of the cooler looking mountain bikes in my opinion. I needed something that could carry my weight capacity, right? Weight capacity is a big one. You'll often find with a lot of these electric scooters and bikes that their weight capacity it goes so high, and it's not as high as you might think. And so that was a big one that I found with this. It was able to take my weight and then some, which was awesome. So that was a big point there. Price-wise, this guy at the time of making this video is under $1,000, which is pretty sweet. I bought it on Amazon. They had a $100 off coupon, at the time. So it brought that down to about $1,000, which was great. I felt like that was a reasonable price. The specs on it with the dual suspension, the 3 power modes, the battery life, the length of travel time, so getting up to 45 miles on a charge, was also very attractive. So all of that kind of came together and pointed me in the direction of the S41. So yeah, I guess that's in a nutshell why I ended up picking this one in particular. So let's talk about how it performed for me in all of my testing. So as I mentioned, the only real issue that I ran into, the only thing that I could see them improving on was that center suspension, right? That kind of seat cushion suspension, absorbing the shock on my body from that perspective, right? Handlebar suspension was great. I would like to see some softer suspension added to the mid-frame suspension unit. Outside of that, okay, my brother, my wife, and I all got to test this thing, got to play with it, and it is nothing short of fantastic. The experience was great. This thing has enough power to just take you up even some very steep, impressively steep hills, right? Obviously you're pedaling with it, but it's very intuitive. As you start to pedal, the motor kicks in, you set the speed, the power that you want, right, to get you where you need to go at the speed you're looking for, and this thing just cruises. On flat ground, with minimal pedaling, I was going almost 30 miles an hour, which was crazy. This thing, and again, I'm big, right? It was able to propel me at those speeds, which was absolutely insane. going up hills in my neighborhood. I have some pretty steep hills in my neighborhood where me, being the out of shape person that I typically am, was able to tackle those with no issue whatsoever, minimal exertion on my end, and it just cruised me right up the hills. I really can't say anything negative about it. The headlight is fantastic. The controlling unit is so intuitive. The gears shifted up and down smoothly without any hangups, no misfires, nothing like that. It was absolutely fantastic. The whole thing was just a really fantastic experience. I really have nothing to complain about. So, I mean, if you guys are out there, you're looking for an electric bike, you're trying to figure out which one to check out, definitely check out G-Force products. They have multiple bikes as well. This isn't the only one that they make, but the S41, in my opinion, is one of the most standard looking kind of mountain bikes, but with a really high-tech edge. But guys, let me know what you think in the comments. Do you have any questions, comments, concerns? Are you looking at electric bikes? What do you think of this one? What do you think the price point? Hit me up down in the comment section below. I try to provide as many comments as I possibly can. But guys, as usual, that is it for me, and I will see you in the next review.